that stuff from Sean May. And Hubert Davis, was the same exact way. And I think that's one of the things when you go back and you talk about Roy Williams, and we talked about this on the final edition of the Roy's Boys podcast, he doesn't realize how many different guys he had that impact on. I'm assuming that Dean Smith did as well, but really the only guy that was as boisterous about it was Roy Williams. Now you've got two guys now that we've seen that have come out and said about as much as you can about the former head coach of the Tar Heels.
We've been best friends for 13 years, and you never cheered up about our friendship in that time. I may have to question the friendship after. I need some emotion.
Yeah, well, you try being as great of a human as Roy Williams is, and we'll get to that point.
I'm a pretty good human.
Okay, let's stop. I don't think either one of us is anywhere close to as good of a human being as Roy Williams is. It's just, I think that really just shows how much of an impact he's had on all these guys. Because I'm assuming that, look, I don't know, Coach Robinson might not be the same way. I'm assuming that Steve Robinson would have a lot of great things to say about Roy Williams. Steve Robinson's a very closed-off, quiet guy. Brad Frederick, does Brad Frederick have an interview out there? Have friends of the pod, Jones Angel and Adam Lucas, ever even interviewed Brad Frederick? I've never seen anything. I've never seen Brad Frederick speak except when he's yelling at guys on the court.
I want to talk to his clipboard.
Or breaking clipboards or whatever. This is the thing. Everybody's saying, well, you guys, you probably want Roy Williams or now Hubert Davis on the pod. No, we want Brad Frederick on the pod. Can we get that lined up there,
A few years ago, we had the Aaron Rollman fan account. Maybe we should just start Brad Frederick's clipboard and just tweet from his clipboard.
The Rollman account is no longer up there. Frickin' Rollman on social media. If anybody was wondering who ran that account, that was ran by yours truly.
We had Daggum Roy, Roy's Polo, Roy's Sweater. Let's get Brad Frederick's clipboard.
Jeez. Well, he hasn't broken one in a while. He's become a little bit calmer since he's moved into a bigger role on the bench. But
I bet the JV guys get it though.
Either way, you just look at the fact that he's talked about in the way that he was. And I think that's why, this hire can work, because this is a guy that's going, I believe him when he says that he's going to take some stuff from Roy, take some stuff from Dean, take some stuff from everybody. And I think that you're spot on when you talk about the fact that, he gets the family aspect and everything like that. But he'll be able to take care of the family and everything like that. Best way to do it is also with results on the court. And I think he's going to be able to do that because he is going to listen to what his mentor told him. I think, and again, we've had him on the podcast. He's a great dude. I love Matt Doherty. Yeah. I think he's just a tremendous individual. He's done, just a ton of great stuff now as an author. Actually, his book actually has gone to second print. So he's doing, just a fantastic job. And he's just a top-notch dude, man. Anytime I see him, whenever he's in the radio studios in Charlotte, he is just a great guy. He'll always sit down, have a conversation with you, whatever. But we remember when we talked to him, when we did the podcast with him back, that's got to be almost 2 summers ago, which is shocking that it's been that long. He told us right out the reason that he failed was because he did not listen enough to Dean Smith and some of the other guys. He didn't do enough of the stuff that Dean Smith did, and to a certain extent Roy Williams, because remember, he was an assistant under Roy Williams. Actually was on his first staff at Kansas. So I think that's where it's going to be different, because while I do think there are going to be tweaks, that's the key thing. It's tweaks. He's not throwing everything out and saying, I'm doing my own thing. That was the unfortunate thing for Matt Doherty, is he tried to kind of be his own guy, which is understandable. A lot of people want to do that.
But
but with
you can't be your own guy at Carolina. You don't take the job and you fire the secretaries that have been there for 30 years.
Look, it's one thing if you're going to be your own guy after coming from underneath a coach that wasn't all that successful and maybe got fired and they hired from within, or maybe they, even if the guy got a bigger job but really wasn't looked at as a guy that got the job done. Then, okay, you can try to do some different things. When you're coming from a guy in Dean Smith that's seen as one of the greatest coaches of all time, you kind of got, I mean, it makes sense that you should listen to some of the things that he was telling him. And I think Coach Doherty did listen to some of the things. But at the same time, I think that with him, he maybe, from hearing what he said to us, not claiming that this is what happened, but from what he said to us, it just seems like he was really trying to prove to people that he was his own guy. He wasn't going to do everything exactly like Dean did. He was going to try to make some of the tweaks to make the team successful in that modern era because the game was adjusting around them, which is what happens. But, I mean...
The thing that failed him that's not going to fail Hubert Davis, it's not... As much as it is your program, and I put that in quotations, it's not your program. And He was a guy that had 1 year of head coaching experience at Notre Dame, wasn't qualified to get the job. As I mentioned, he wasn't one of the top candidates that Dean Smith was knocking down their door to come coach this team.
Well, that was the other part of it, is that I also think that he was horribly set up for failure. People pretty much, everybody knew. Now, again, the message boards weren't anywhere near what they are today. I don't even know. They may have been. They were probably around, but in the very early stages. Social media wasn't around. But people around the Carolina basketball program, they knew that he wasn't anywhere near the first choice. And I think that coming in, he pretty much he was unfairly criticized the minute that he took the job. Most people looked at him and said, this ain't going to work.
Yeah. So with the hire, there's a lot of questions that come with you're hiring a guy who's never been a head coach. He's got 9 years of assistant coaching experience and 7 years coaching a JV team, which is a great experience for him in terms of having to put together a practice, a game plan, in-game adjustments, because you're playing against other colleges that have scholarship guys, or everyone that plays for the JV team, they're all walk-ons, is a staff. And he touched on that. And we'll hear what he has to say, and then we'll draw some conclusions, because there's a lot of questions that come from his statement about assembling his staff.
In terms of the staff, you can't do this job unless you're a Carolina guy. It's impossible. You can't coach here. You can't recruit here. You can't work here unless you have been here, you've experienced it, you have lived it. And so in terms of the staff, it's all guys that have experienced this place and believe it and have the passion and the desire that all of us have for this university and this program and these kids in this community. One of the things that I desperately want to do in terms of a staff is I want to connect the generations. I want to have guys on staff that played for Coach Smith. I want to have guys on staff that played for Coach Guthridge, and I want to have guys on staff that played with Coach Williams. I want to be able to connect all those, because I think bringing all those coaches together is what makes Carolina Carolina. And so in assembling a staff, that is the number one thing that I'm thinking about. You got to be a Carolina guy, and I want an example from every one of the coaches that have meant so much to me, but has also meant so much to this program.
You know, one of the things I love the most about his statement is that he wants to link together all the generations of Carolina basketball that have had a positive impact on him, and really the generations that have built the program: Dean Smith, Bill Guthridge, and now Roy Williams. But there's been a lot of drawbacks saying that, well, now you're limiting yourself to just hiring Carolina players only. I think what he said got taken out of context. A lot like being the head coach here, it's really hard to coach here if you've never experienced Carolina basketball, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, because it is different. And I can say that because when Roy Williams first came to Carolina back in 03 and 04, when he left Kansas, he brought a lot of quote-unquote Kansas guys with him. Joe Holiday, who is now retired, Gerard Haas is now the head coach at Stanford. C.B. McGrath, who very well could be working his way back into a staff or a role on the staff here back at Carolina. Steve Robinson. They were all considered Kansas guys. But now you think of Steve Robinson and C.B. McGrath, and even when Joe Holliday retired, they were Carolina guys.
And Gerard
Haas. They were Carolina guys. And so I think that's what you got to remember is that he may have said that in terms of that you didn't play here. You've got to have ties here to a certain degree because it's just, and we can't tell you that it's different to the level that he can, that former players and coaches can. This is a different job. And so you need to have people in roles that are recruiting, coaching, handling the day-to-day responsibilities of this job that have experienced what it's like being here. You can't bring in, that's why I said you couldn't bring in an outsider as the head coach, and that's why I don't believe you can't bring in an outsider as an assistant head coach either.
Yeah, I mean, I get why some people are a little concerned about that because, yeah, you are limiting yourself. But I do think that there are a lot of really good options as well that you can bring in to help be a part of your coaching staff. I mean, the good thing is I know that some people are concerned about, is it really going to work at this level? You look at a lot of the guys, I mean, they coach, some of them coach high school, some of them coach AAU, but there are a lot of former players, even recent former players, that are already in coaching. There are other ones that probably will get into coaching. So I think that there are going to be a lot of really good options for you to bring onto your staff that can help you out. And like you mentioned, I think, C.B. McGrath, as long as he is considering him one of those Carolina guys, which I would believe he is, I would be pretty stunned if CB is not on his staff next year, as long as CB wants to get back into being an assistant coach. That's kind of going to be, I guess, up to CB. We'll just have to wait and see. But I think if there is any want to, he will be back on that bench. I think if Gerard Haas was to get fired at Stanford or just was to feel like that wasn't a place that he wanted to be at anymore, I do think Gerard Haas would be welcome back as well. And those are some of the experienced guys. Then you're talking about guys that are coaching on the AAU level, the high school level. You got Jeff McGinnis, who I've been told that people are not 100% certain on him just because he is apparently an extremely intense coach. I have not seen him coach, to be really honest with you, but some of the people that I've talked to, they said he is a very intense coach. So I mean, I don't know, but I'm assuming, just from looking at the success that he's had at Combine Academy in, where is that considered? That's Lincolnton, North Carolina. One of the premier academies already on the East Coast for basketball. And that school's been around for 2 or 3 years.
No, it's been around since 2011.
Really?
Yeah.
But he hasn't been there.
He's elevated that
really that long. He's been there only a few years.
Yeah, he's only been there 2 to 3 years. That program's been around
elevated
since like 11.
them. He has elevated them to just unprecedented levels for a school in this area. They are one of the tops in the country.
Yeah, we're not going to touch on all the candidates.
Right, but I'm saying, like, you look at him, you look at Jawad Williams, he's a coach as well. So there are a ton of different guys in the family that you can pluck from. I feel like people think you're limiting yourself, but there's a talent pool here coaching-wise that I think is much better than people realize. So that's the one thing that I'm gonna sort of caution people to, is that you've got guys in the Carolina family that have a lot of coaching experience. You've got a lot of guys that are up and comers. So I really think that it's not as big of a deal as some people are making it out to be.
And I mean, you got to think, this tree goes back 60 years. And most of these guys, when they've left the Carolina tree, they've gone elsewhere and had their fair share of success. So the system, the philosophy, as he mentioned in his presser, it's tried, it's true, it's proven. You're not limiting yourself. You're still getting guys that are going to find different ways in today's version of basketball that can help you win, whether it's with analytics and floor spacing. And even some of the older guys, they know how to coach, they know how to get the most out of kids, and that's what his job is going to be. The biggest piece of audio that got me ready to go through a brick wall that the Carolina basketball account is pushing down, that's putting out as much as possible, that really every